I'm Deb Shebish and I play fiddle, and I'm here to show you a couple tips on how to get the most out of your instrument when you're playing in an old time jam or just at your own practice at home. And so the first thing that I talk about is your bow, and there's a lot of different bow holds that happen, and the first thing that you have to decide which is most comfortable for you is that you'll see this, which is where the thumb's not in the nook of the bow, or this. Those are the two big camps that I see that are different. I hold here, and so how I get that bow hold so that it's nice and relaxed and that you can play a long time with zero pain is that I approach it with a round hand, and you want to think about a little rabbit, and the thumb is contacting that middle finger and ring finger right around here. So you see how that's round? That's the shape that you want. And then I just slide it on the bow. This sort of leans in a bit, pinky on top, and that it's always that nice round shape. This is what you want to look out for. Where the tension comes in is when people start pushing that thumb out. And if you have a tense hand here, you're going to have a more harsh sound. So if that shape is in place, you can decide if you want it here or here. Both happen and both are totally valid. It's just what's most comfortable for you. And so when I play, I tend to hold up on the bow like this when I'm playing fiddle. And that's just simply because the people that I learned from hold like that, and I find it comfortable and kind of efficient. So that's just the bit about bow hold. Again, to review, this shape like a little rabbit, if you're thinking of what a kid would do, it's good for adults too. And that thumb is round, and when I slide it in here, the thumb could be either on the ferrule, that silver part round, or in the nook there, and that pinky is on top. And so that's kind of the notion there. And so when I put it on the instrument, we can further talk about the bow, and I'm going to hold it up like I hold it right here. And to get the best, clearest tone, I want to have a straight bow, like that. Where you start getting a tone that's a little more not clear or not scratchy, not clear but kind of scratchy, is when it starts cutting across the string this way. And you can hear that's not a very satisfying sound. You're not getting what you want out of the instrument, and that's because the bow is not running parallel to that bridge. So when I'm getting a good clear bow, I'm opening up that arm, and I'm closing that arm. If I were to hold the bow up like I do when I'm playing in a jam, you can see it's running pretty much parallel to that bridge. The closer you are to the bridge, the more kind of strident the tone. Closer you are to the fingerboard, a little more weak tone there. And there's some people that like to be, whatever place they want for whatever sound they want. That's up to you. But I think one thing to really focus on is, are you getting a clear tone that's nice, straight bow? One exercise that I do that you can do to get that muscle memory is you kind of make train tracks here. Lay the fingers on the bow parallel to the bridge, and you just bow like this to kind of get the feel of what straight is. If you're fighting it, you're not doing it right. It should just go right like that. And so then I take it away, and that's just kind of a way of having a training aid. So the next thing I think I want to talk about with technique, and my goal with technique is I want to play as long as possible pain-free. I don't want to feel tired. I don't want to feel stressed out, and I don't want to feel cramped in my hands. And so when I'm looking at my left hand and you're holding the instrument, I use a shoulder rest. You can choose whatever you like. Some people like them, some people don't. I find that it helps it to not slip and kind of keep it up a bit. But this left hand, you want the fingers kind of nice and curved over the strings. And in order for that to happen, the elbow has to be a little bit in. And when you think about our daily life, texting happens like this, driving happens like this, typing, all that sort of stuff. Fiddle playing is an exception here, and so it might be worth it to just touch your shoulder, bring that elbow in, even maybe touch the elbow, because this is more in line with what we want to look like. When your hands in that position, when your arms in that position, the elbow not out, but in, you can see my round fingers, and I'm kind of on the tiptoes here, and I'm going to get really a more precise note. I'm not going to be playing with the pads of the fingers, which is a little less accurate, but I'm going to have a little more finer tool to put that finger down. Watch what happens with my fingers when I take my elbow out. As the hand flattens out, I'm playing on the pads. And this is an exaggeration, but you will see people playing like this, and then they're trying to get the notes accurately with the fingers. This isn't where you want to solve that problem. You want to solve it with the elbow coming in. And again, it looks like this. So that's just something to think about if you're struggling with intonation, if you're struggling with just feeling like you're consistent with getting those fingers placed in the right way. If your elbow's in a bit, and that is going to feel strange, because if you're like everybody else, you do all these things all day. You have to bring it in. Everything really just falls into place. The next thing I think about with the left hand is my thumb. And so if you want accurate intonation on your fiddle, your thumb has to be like an anchor. And it's always relatively right lined up with the first finger. So some people have it a little bit farther back. Some people have it a little bit lower like this. But you want it as like an anchor for where your first finger is, because that's the point of reference. If your thumb's way back here, you're just constantly shooting for whatever, and you don't know where you're at. So having that thumb anchored where the first finger is, having that elbow in, is going to set you up for a really successful jam session or practice session. And so when you put those fingers down, they literally can just fall into place there, rather than climbing and clawing for them. Okay, so those are some things that I think are really important technically. I think it's also really essential to remember that everybody's body is completely different. Some people have super long fingers, some people have a really long or short thumb. And so if you're trying to look like somebody else because you think they're doing it the right way, you have to take in consideration your own physiology and say, is that really going to work for me? And any injuries that you might have. So if your shoulder is messed up and getting in here is tough, you want to be in line with the least amount of pain. If this is painful, then that's not what you're going to do. It's all about working with your own body to make it feel like you're at ease. So those are my two technique things.